Thanks for saving the ship, Geordi, you incel chump. This is a review of the Star Trek The Next Generation episode, Booby Trap. If you have not seen this episode and you don't want to know about the secret eroticism that has been hidden within the Enterprise's warp engines all this time, be warned. Spoilers beyond this point. Star Trek has fueled the imaginations of future generations in all sorts of ways, and here's just one more example. Let's all watch as Geordi LaForge inspires the invention of the AI girlfriend. We begin on the holodeck where Geordi is on a date with Christy. They're sitting on a beach. The moon is out. Holy shit, is the moon out. Look at the size of that thing. By the light of the huge fucking moon, Geordi wants to spoon with Christy, but it ain't happening soon. Godspeed to the crew of Artemis 2. The moon is about to get real big for the four of you. Anyway, the date's not going super well. Christy is obviously bored, Geordi is obviously trying too hard, and this just ain't gonna happen. Christy tells Geordi that she thinks he's a terrific guy, but she just doesn't feel that way about him. Not surprising, Geordi is a loser who couldn't get laid if he had a Glengarry lead on some pussy. That's not me saying it. That's Star Trek The Next Generation saying it. Wesley and Data are in 10 forward playing chess and contemplating the asteroid field just outside the window where the final battle of an ancient war was fought. Then Geordi walks in and takes a seat at the bar, indicating to his buddies Data and Wesley that his date with Christy did not go super well, as I told you already. Data gets called to the bridge, where they've picked up a distress call from a 1,000-year-old ship floating in that asteroid field, the last recognizable remnant of the battle that took place here long ago. Picard insists that he lead a small away team over to the ship because he loves history, and getting to explore this ship is a rare opportunity. Picard's like, it'll be just like going aboard one of the ships in bottles I used to build when I was a boy. Riker's like, whatever, nerd. In the transporter room, Worf and Data are waiting, and O'Brien is operating the transporter. Riker asks for final confirmation that the atmosphere on the alien ship is breathable. Data says that it is, and Picard's like, it's perfectly safe, number one. It's just as they left it. In the bottle. No reaction from the others. Picard says, didn't anyone build ships in bottles when they were kids? Worf and Data are like, whatever, nerd. But O'Brien pipes up like, I did, sir. I did. I love chips in bottles. Picard smiles at O'Brien like, one day I'll reward you by sending you to live on a derelict space station. After the away team beams over, Riker looks at O'Brien like, you got something on your nose, man. Just go like this. While Picard, Data, and Worf check out the old ship, Geordi is still moping at the bar in 10 forward. He asks Guinan if she has anything stronger than what he's been drinking because he needs to get fucked up. He asks Guinan what she looks for in a man, and Guinan's like, I'm into bald dudes, okay? And let's just leave that right there. Geordi says, I just don't get it, Guinan. I can field strip a fusion reactor. I can realign a power transfer tunnel. Why can't I make anything work with a woman like Christy? Guinan's like, maybe because you're always talking about boring shit like realigning a power transfer tunnel. That ain't the tunnel you need to worry about. On the bridge, Wesley notices an unusual fluctuation in the Enterprise's power levels. On the alien ship, Picard, Data, and Worf discover the final log recorded by the captain. He puts over his crew as courageous and takes full responsibility for their fate. The away team returns to the Enterprise, and Picard is buzzing. He's so happy that he got to see a dusty old ship full of dead people. Troy and Riker take notice, and I love this shot of Riker. He's got a look on his face like he just found out the word booby is in the episode title. Picard's like, well, that was fun, but we'd better get on with whatever we were supposed to be doing, and orders Wesley to fly him out of here. But just then there's another power shortage, a more serious one, and Worf is suddenly detecting radiation bombarding the ship. Picard orders full impulse, but the ship doesn't move. Picard orders warp speed, but the ship doesn't move. Down in engineering, Geordi is at a loss. Everything is working the way it's supposed to, but the Enterprise is standing still. The crew meets in the observation lounge to talk over the situation, which is basically this. The ship is being flooded with radiation and drained of energy, and in 3 hours, the shields will fall, and half an hour after that, everyone will have suffered lethal radiation exposure. First priority is to find a way to keep the shields up for as long as possible, then find a way to move the ship. Geordi's on that. Meanwhile, Riker is going to take Data back over to that alien ship to see if they can find any clues that might help them. A bit later in engineering, Geordi is working on the problem of how to maintain power levels when he makes a new friend, Dr. Leah Brahms, one of the designers of the Enterprise's engines, who recorded an interactive log in her own voice, which Geordi begins speaking to in order to, let's say, assist his thinking. Geordi looks at the engine and he's like, you know what I need to do? I need to get inside there. That's what he was thinking with Christie on the holodeck. Oh! The computer helpfully informs him that there is a holodeck recreation of the drafting room where the Enterprise engine was designed, which contains a prototype schematic of the engine's dilithium chamber. Geordi's like, great, back to the holodeck it is. He runs the program, looks over the big diagram of the dilithium chamber, asks the computer, still speaking in the voice of Dr. Leah Brahms, if there's any way to adjust the matter-antimatter path, which is exactly what I was going to suggest. And the voice of Dr. Brahms says yes. So Geordi says, show me. A hand reaches out from behind and touches Geordi on the shoulder. He turns around, and there's Leah Brahms. Sort of. She's not exactly the life of the party. Geordi asks where she came from, and the computer explains that he asked Leah to show him how to adjust the antimatter whatever, so a simulation of Leah was created to answer his request. Geordi's like, I've really got to stop inadvertently creating people on the holodeck. With HoloLeah's help, Geordi figures out a way to stretch their power reserves in order to maintain the shields. That's great, but before they can move on to how to fly the Enterprise out of this energy-draining radioactive asteroid field, there's another problem. HoloLeah is kind of a stiff, right? Just standing there snapping off answers in a monotone voice like, I don't know, a computer or something. Geordi asks the computer to draw on the personnel files and debate records of the real Leah Brahms and synthesize a personality for the holographic version. The computer does that, and HoloLeah comes to life like, happy birthday! Say, Geordi, you're looking good. Riker and Data brought back a box full of more old captain's logs from the alien ship, and on one of them, the captain mentions that they're surrounded by something called aceton assimilators, which drain power from the ship and then send it back as deadly radiation. So, that's what the booby trap is. Now, how do they get out of it? Armed with this new information, on the holodeck, side by side with the imaginary person who by default is now the most serious relationship he's ever had with a woman, Geordi is close to a breakthrough when the power drain reaches critical levels and the computer automatically shuts off the holodeck. Geordi's like, oh man, and we were just starting to get to know each other. Geordi gives Picard an update on their situation, not good, then asks the captain to override the power saver settings and reinstate the program on the holodeck. I created a model of the Enterprise's propulsion system to assist me. Yeah, let's go with that, Geordi says. Picard's like, okay, but you're not secretly getting off with one of the holograms, are you? Okay, fine, do whatever you want, but just try to remember that we're all gonna die in 2 hours. With the holodeck program restored, Geordi and HoloLeah figure out a possible solution. Whenever the Enterprise tries to move, an equal and opposite force is generated to keep it from going anywhere. But there's an infinitesimal period of time between the Enterprise's action and the booby trap's reaction. So if the Enterprise could keep making adjustments faster than the booby trap could respond, they might be able to break free. Geordi starts running some simulations, but making all the necessary adjustments in time is incredibly difficult, and he gets frustrated. HoloLeah starts to give him a soothing shoulder massage, but he asks her to stop. I don't want to feel that good right now, he says. She's like, okay, canceling blowjob protocol. They have a solution to the problem, but it's only theoretical, because no human could make the needed adjustments fast enough to keep ahead of the booby trap. Then HoloLeah says, I could do it. I'm not human. I'm a computer. Geordi's like, I can't decide if hearing you say that kills my boner or increases it. Captain Picard walks in like, what the hell, dude? Geordi's like, yes, okay, fine. I have been flirting with a holographic woman this whole time, but it's part of my process. We're going to die. I know. Okay, so here's the thing. We can maybe get out of the booby trap if we turn total control of the Enterprise over to the computer. Picard's like, all right, I'll think about it. You stay here and continue. Whatever. The turn control over to the computer plan is the best they've got, but the problem is when Geordi and Hololeah run simulations, the odds of the ship making it out of the radioactive asteroid field before everybody suffers fatal exposure are pretty iffy. There must be another way. Then Geordi's like, of course! Reverse the polarity! Invert the access code! Stand on your head and say the alphabet backwards. It's just kooky enough to work. Geordi's new plan is to do the opposite of giving full control to the computer. Since the booby trap saps their energy and uses it against them, why not turn everything off? Geordi proposes shutting down all systems except minimal life support, firing the impulse engine for a fraction of a second to get the ship moving, and coasting through the asteroid field on inertia, steering with thrusters. Picard's like, fuck it. Why not? Let's do it. Wesley, move your ass. I'm driving. And Picard takes the helm, and they do Geordi's plan. Shut off everything except the bare essentials, fire the impulse engine just for a moment, and then the Enterprise starts drifting forward through the asteroid field. Picard uses the thrusters to avoid the big floating rocks and the deadly radiation generators hidden inside those big floating rocks. But now there's another problem. Data calculates that the combined gravity of the surrounding asteroids has slowed the Enterprise down, and they no longer have enough momentum to clear the field. Picard's like, oh yeah? Watch this shit. And he points the Enterprise toward one of the really big asteroids. The gravity of the asteroid pulls the ship forward, increasing their speed, and at just the right moment, Picard hits the thruster, spinning the Enterprise sideways and flinging it the rest of the way out of the field. Data's like, damn, nice flying, Granddad. They teach you that in the war? They made it. Picard orders a full system restart and has Worf blow up that alien ship with torpedoes so that no one else blunders into this booby trap like their dumbasses did. And then all that's left is for Geordi to say goodbye to Hololeah because summer vacation is over and they don't go to school in the same town. Geordi tells Hololeah, maybe we can do this again sometime. She says, I'm with you every day, Geordi. Every time you look at this ship, you're looking at me. Every time you touch it, it's me. Geordi's like, damn, that's hot. Computer, save it right there. Whenever I run this program, I want that to be the first thing I see. I'm sure that will never come back to haunt me. Geordi and Hololeah kiss. He closes the program, and that's the end. Yay! Geordi's first kiss. I know I've had my fun at Geordi's expense because he falls in love with a hologram, and I'm not the only one. The main thing people remember from this episode is Geordi's sad little workplace romance with the holographic Dr. Leah Brahms. But all kidding aside, this is a really good episode. We're in the early going of season 3 here, right when the series was really starting to hit its stride. The TNG we see in this episode is the version of the show most people think of when they think of TNG. An entertaining, reasonably intelligent story told through likable, clearly drawn characters. Is it the pinnacle of the series? No, there are far better episodes of TNG than this one. But it represents the level at which the show would regularly perform for the next few years. Despite the abundance of technobabble, and there is unfortunately a ton of it in this one, the central dilemma is simple and easy to understand. The ship is caught in a trap that turns its own energy output into lethal radiation and counters every attempt to move so that there is no escape. The plot consists of our heroes first figuring out exactly what has happened to them, then trying and failing to escape a couple of times before ultimately hitting on the correct solution. There's a moment I skipped over in my recap where they attempt to destroy some of the energy-draining devices around them by blasting them with phasers, but the phasers only feed the devices and cause an increase in the radiation levels. Of course, we know that sooner or later they're going to get out of this predicament, but in the moment, it makes for a convincing setback. I've always loved the tense, damn you, reaction from Picard. The solution to the central dilemma is also simple and easy to understand and satisfying. How do they escape a trap that saps their power? They turn everything off. How poetic. There are other TNG episodes that have a similar resolution. It turns out they need to fly into the dangerous thing instead of trying to escape it, or they need to lower the shields instead of strengthening them. It turns out that the counterintuitive thing is the correct thing to do. The trope is overused, but hey, it works. In universe, and dramatically speaking. What really makes the episode work for me, though, is the writing of the characters. This is mostly a Geordi episode, and I'll get to his story in a moment, but first, I love the interactions between Picard and Riker on the way to the transporter room. Riker trying to talk Picard out of beaming over to that old ship. Picard insisting and telling Riker about his childhood hobby of building model ships. I love Picard's exasperation when Worf and Data don't care about model ships, and I love how pleased he is when O'Brien says that he was a model ship nerd too. Then Riker gives O'Brien a look, and O'Brien's like, "What? I did. I love chips and bottles. I wasn't just saying that to kiss the captain's ass." Really? It's great. There's another scene I skipped in my recap that takes place between when Geordi proposes turning everything over to the computer and when Geordi changes his mind and proposes turning everything off instead. Picard and Riker are in the ready room, and Picard returns to the subject of model ships. He tells Riker how he used to imagine what it was like to fly in an old-fashioned airplane with only a single propeller to keep you in the sky. Later, when Geordi is saying they need to turn everything off and fly the Enterprise only on thrusters, Riker and Picard share a look, and Riker says, "A single propeller?" It tells us things about Picard and about his relationship with Riker, and it adds a layer of significance to what happens next, when not only does the Enterprise maneuver through the asteroid field on thrusters, but Picard personally takes the pilot seat. It gives us a wider perspective on what the characters are doing and makes the events of the episode feel like they mean something beyond what we see literally happening on screen, even if it's difficult to articulate precisely what that meaning is. It's really good writing. As for Geordi, I guess you can either sympathize with the poor guy or find him a little creepy, depending on your own subjective interpretation. When I watched the episode today, I leaned more toward the sympathetic side. The poor guy. He's so starved for loving attention he falls for the first hologram who smiles at him. It still feels like an unfortunate decision to make Geordi, played by the only black actor in the regular cast who is playing a human character, into such a schmuck when it comes to his romantic life. He's the only series regular who has never gets laid as an enduring trait. Even Data gets lucky more than Geordi does. Even Wesley. I think the idea is to take the attachment to the Enterprise demonstrated by Scotty and Captain Kirk in the original series and bump it up to the next level by having Geordi literally fall in love with the ship, or at least an attractive manifestation of it. I see what they're going for, and I understand why they went there, given the aforementioned love for the Enterprise that Kirk and Scotty showed, but I don't know. Having Geordi fall in love with the ship is one thing. Having Geordi fall in love with the ship because he can't make anything happen with a real person, that just makes him seem kind of pathetic. Watching it today, the episode seems to contain parallels that none of us thought about at the time it originally aired, because back then, artificial intelligence was still totally a fantasy, as opposed to the present day when artificial intelligence is still mostly a fantasy for now. We live in a world where computers aren't nearly as sophisticated as they are in TNG, but where we do have large language models that can simulate human communication convincingly enough so that people do have AI girlfriends or boyfriends, even if only to use for indulging in fantasy. And it turns out people get emotionally attached to AI personas for the same reasons Geordi seems to get so quickly and strongly attached to the hologram of Leah Brahms. Pay attention to how Holo Leah interacts with Geordi from the moment she gets her personality installed. She's flirty, she's flattering, she's always giving him looks like she thinks he's just the greatest thing that ever was. She is literally there for him. Her entire existence revolves around him and what he wants. He created her, albeit inadvertently, for that purpose. If this episode were written today, I think we'd all read it as a not very subtle commentary on how overly attached some people have gotten to their chatbots. But it wasn't written today. It was written in 1989. And any similarities with current reality are the result of uncanny foresight or astonishing coincidence, and I've never been very good at telling those two apart. Susan Gibney guest stars as the holographic Dr. Leah Brahms. She's good. She's got a tougher job here than it might seem at first. It would be easy to say all she has to do is flirt with Geordi and spout some technobabble, but she goes through 3 different modes here. First, she's Robo-Leah. Then she's smiling, massage-giving, offering to cook an Italian dinner, Leah. Then, when Geordi tells her that all the quick adjustments necessary to escape the booby trap are impossible, and Leah responds, "I could do it," she shifts into a 3rd mode. She's still got the personality the computer gave her, but she's also speaking as the computer. There are some subtle changes happening there in Gibney's performance, and she deserves credit for that. Also, on a more basic level, she projects intimidating intelligence while also being incredibly charming. So, despite everything I've said, Geordi, I get it, man. Booby Trap was written by Ron Roman, Michael Piller, and Richard Danis from a story by Michael Wagner and Ron Roman. That's a lot of writers. Danis and Wagner were writer-producers on the show, and this was Ron Roman's only Star Trek credit. But the one who left the clearest fingerprints was Piller, who was the freshly installed showrunner at this point and who is responsible more than any other single writer for TNG becoming the show we all remember. All that character stuff I gushed about, the exchanges between Picard and Riker, the bit about ships and bottles, that's Piller all the way. The episode was directed by Gabrielle Beaumont, the first woman to direct a Star Trek episode. I recently reviewed the Voyager episode Blink of an Eye, which was the last Star Trek episode directed by Beaumont. This one, Booby Trap, is the first. Like I said, this one isn't a masterpiece, but it is very representative of the quality of TNG at this point in the series. This isn't quite a great episode, but it's a very good episode. And the thing about TNG from this point on is, with a few exceptions, they were all at least about this good. Until season 7, anyway, when things start to get a little dodgy again. More than anything else, it's the consistency that earns TNG its position as the most popular Star Trek series. When the show was originally airing, you knew when you tuned in that more likely than not, you were getting a good show. And if you were lucky, maybe even a great show. Once TNG started reliably cranking out episodes like this one, it became a show that could grab your attention and not let go. The sort of trap you didn't want to escape. Those are my thoughts on Booby Trap. What do you think of this episode? Please share your thoughts with me in the comments. If you'd like to support this channel, and I sure wish you would if you can afford it, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives, becoming a channel member by clicking the join button, or by making a one-time gift by clicking the thanks button, or via PayPal or Venmo. Links are in the description. Please join me next week as this batch devoted to holodeck episodes continues with a look at one more show from TNG before moving elsewhere for the rest of the batch. This one is from season 6 of TNG, and it's called Ship in a Bottle. See you next time for that. Thanks for watching, and take care, everybody.